Hey everybody, welcome back to Dad Does Videos. Today, I'm coming at you from my bedroom and from my living room. And that's because I want to talk to you today about AirStone, this stone veneer product you see right here, and give you some tips for how to install it. I've used a product in 2 rooms, you've seen them both now, right? And couldn't really be happier with it so far. I bought it at Lowe's maybe 5-6 years ago, and that's when I installed it. So it's a little bit before my time of making videos. I believe you can get it directly at airstone.com now, on Amazon, or even at Menards locations if you have those around where you are. The stones come in 3 different colors or kind of color patterns. One is Autumn Mountain, that's what you see right here. It's kind of a mix of oranges, some tans, some creams. And yet another is Spring Creek, and that's more of the grays, the blacks, maybe even some browns mixed in, and that's what's on this wall right here behind me. Yet another, which I have not installed, is called Birch Buff, and that's lighter. Creams, beiges, similar types of tones like that. And I just put up stones up on 2 separate, just flat, straight walls, right? AirStone does make some corner pieces, so if you have a situation where you want to wrap stones around a corner somewhere in your home, you can do that. They also have what they call finished edge pieces, where instead of the stones having a flat edge at the end of the pieces, they have kind of a finished edge. So if there's a situation where the stone is ending and you don't want kind of a fabricated look, they have stones that actually look like stones on the end. Those are 2 other variations I wanted to mention just to make you aware. I'm not going to be really talking about those in this video because I haven't worked with them. So let's get back to the product. These stones actually really do look and feel like real stone. The only difference is that they are 75% lighter than actual stone, so that makes them a little bit more usable for what you want to do. You can see they come in a variety of different lengths, different heights. They're really thicker in spots than in others too, and that's why they tend to really look like stone. So let me give you a close-up of these. Okay, so wanted to give you some context as to where I was coming from. You can see my TV is mounted up there. It's kind of close to where I was standing before. But as I get closer here, you can see the variations right here, where you can see this piece is longer and taller, whereas the ones right next to it, there's a shorter one and one a little bit longer. So AirStone has a variety of different pieces, and that's why I like them. They're not all fabricated to look the same way. You've got pieces that could be tall, like this one that's 4 inches in height, or the one above it that's 2 inches. And then of course you've got stones that are about 4 inches right here and maybe 6 inches. The variety of sizes and heights makes it look a little bit more like real stone. As you can see as I get closer here, and it probably doesn't do it justice because you're on video, but you could probably see the difference in textures in some of these as well. They don't all look the same. Sometimes you'll get that with some of the veneer, some of the fabricated stones, where you just think, gosh, that looks so much like it's just manufactured. And of course this is too, so you're not going to get completely away from that. But as you can see right here in this just sample of, what is this, probably a 2x2 square foot area, something like that, you can see all the variation that you have in colors, in height. I'm not sure if you could see it here, but thickness, thinness, that's all over the place, and that's what I really like about this product. You can also apply the stones to all kinds of different surfaces. You don't have to do anything special either to prepare the surface or anything like that. So these right here, right, the ones we've been talking about, they're just applied to drywall, but you can apply to all kinds of things: plywood, concrete, tile, etc. Now the downside of this product, it does and can get kind of expensive. You can buy boxes of what you see here. Remember again, these are the standard stones. One box covers about 8 square feet and it runs about $60. But you also need to get the AirStone adhesive. That'll run you about $17–18 a gallon, and that covers about 30 square feet. Silver lining, of course, is that you can absolutely put up these stones by yourself. So you're not paying someone to do the actual labor. You really don't need any specialized skills to do this either. That being said, AirStone likes to convey the message that you don't need the specialized tools for this, and you don't, but a few things certainly can help. Okay, so let's talk about some things that can help here in terms of some tools that you would like when you go through this process. So we've got our putty knife down here, and you absolutely want one of these. This is what you're going to use to scoop the adhesive out of the bucket that you get and apply it to the back of the stones, and we'll get to that a little bit more later. You will absolutely want a level, and while one of those longer ones could do, I like the short ones, maybe 8 or 10 or 12 inches, because, and again, something else I'll get to in a bit, you're going to want to make sure your stones are level across the board when you are applying them to the wall. Shims are useful to actually break apart and make little pieces so that, again, that you can slide them underneath your stones at certain points and at certain depths, so that you can level out your stones as you apply. A hacksaw you will need to cut stones in certain places. Any hacksaw will do. I've seen people use chop saws and other saws. Those are a little bit too, I guess, messy to me, and I like the control that you have with the hacksaw just doing it by hand. These stones are really easy to cut through, so it's not a big deal. Just make sure that your blade is always sharp, and make sure you have replacement ones, because those tend to wear down pretty quickly. And then I use an oscillating tool at certain parts that I'll talk about later. Certainly something you don't need. It just helps to kind of shave certain areas of the stone off when you're really trying to get a really tight fit in certain places. So before you go out and buy a bunch of stones, there's some prep work that you have to do first. First thing you want to do, not surprisingly, is measure your space so you know how many boxes you need along with how much adhesive. If you're doing just flat walls like I did, just measure the length and the height and multiply. That gives you the total square feet, right? Then divide that by 8. Remember, that's the total square footage of stones in each box, and that will give you the number of boxes of stones that you'll need. And again, take that total wall square footage and divide by 30. That'll give you the number of buckets of adhesive you are likely to need. Also, I'd suggest painting the wall a similar color to the stones you are applying. So for this one, I painted it kind of a light gray. And the reason why you want to do that is because occasionally there are some small gaps between the stones on the wall. Although the situations, it's rare that happens, it's a little less evident to your eyes if that gap is similar in color to the stones that are on the wall. Also, have a plan for your wall before you apply. If you are mounting anything, think about how that's going to work. So you could see right here, I have a TV mounted on my wall. What I did when I was thinking of putting the stones up, I mounted that flat screen TV mount to my wall before I put the stones up, and I worked around it with the stones. Let me show you how that looks. Okay, let me try to get you a good shot at this. So you can see here that I mounted the TV mount to the drywall and then went around the mount with my AirStone. And this is what I mean by thinking ahead and trying to figure out, hey, if you have something like this that you want to hang on the wall, you want to think about where you want to do that and how to hang that before you put your stone up. I also mounted in my living room this electric fireplace before I put the stones up. And let me show you what I did here. Just another idea and something else you just have to keep in mind of how you want to think about things before you put your stones up. As I get closer here, you can see that this is actually mounted on a 2x4 right here. What I did to make sure the 2x4 blended in with the rest of the stones, I just took one of these stones with me to Lowe's and asked the painting folks to color match it for me. So now if you happen to see the 2x4, which is kind of hidden behind the actual fireplace itself, it just blends right into the stone. So it's not as much of an eyesore if it were something that were painted a different color or maybe just raw wood. Okay, so great. So you've got your supplies, you've got your plan, you're ready to get started, right? So you crack open a box, you check out your stones, you grab one, and you start making a row across the bottom of the wall. Start from left to right, or right to left, it doesn't make a difference. As you go, make sure you vary the color and the size of the stones. You don't want all your gray 4-inch pieces grouped together or something like that, right? Now I want to stress the first row is the most important row of the whole wall. You want to make sure that it is level. That way the rows above it, right, will follow suit. First row level, everything else kind of falls into play. So you open your adhesive, you get some on your putty knife, and you spread it on the back of a stone. Think about putting icing on a cupcake, not one of those ginormous gourmet cupcakes that has like, 2 pounds of icing on it, just those regular ones, right? That's about how much adhesive you should have on your stone. I try to have a bit more in the middle of the stone and less on the edges, because when you press that stone against your drywall or whatever surface you're putting it on, that adhesive is going to spread out. But anyway, you just push the stone onto your drywall, use your level to make sure it's straight, and then this is important, scrape away any adhesive that leaked out along the sides of your stone. It's important because when that adhesive hardens, it is going to make it difficult to put a stone above or next to the one that it is already on the wall. It basically blocks the upcoming stones from laying evenly and correctly. Anyway, back to the wall. Keep doing the same thing with the next stone you pick up. Make sure the stones are level with each other too. So when you're moving from one to another and the next one, you want to make sure that this one is level with this one is level with the next one, so it's level all the way across. To make sure everything's level, I tend to break apart some of the shims that we talked about earlier that I have, and we make little spacers that you can use to help you level stones as you go. So the varying thicknesses of the shims, if you break them up into little pieces, you can insert those underneath your stones, or maybe on one side, or maybe between one or another, to help you get those stones level as you go across here and there. But you keep going across until you complete the row. Inevitably, when you get to the end of the row, you're most likely going to need your hacksaw, because it's not going to be a perfect fit. And let me show you what I mean by that. So here's a perfect example of a few pieces that I had to cut right here and right here. We had to cut those because when our stones got to that point, we only had, 1.5 inches or so for each one of these. So I had to cut these pieces off of another piece of stone to make sure that I had the right amount of stone to put in here to fill the gap. That is going to happen as you keep going through this process. You'll see this happen again right here. It happens quite a bit as you go forward. There's another one. Now, an important thing right here to keep in mind, I'm trying to find some other pieces here as we go. There's another one where it happened. We've got a few more up there, but it's going to happen. Inevitably, you're not gonna have a perfect match of stones to their width the whole way through, so you're going to have to cut some pieces here and there with that hacksaw. And to me, that's the perfect tool to use in these situations. But don't throw away the remainder of that cut stone. You could use those later, because guess what? There are going to be situations where you need a smaller piece to fill a gap or maybe complete another row. So personally, I like to stop there, let the adhesive harden on your one row overnight. Then you have that solid foundation to build on. When you start again, you can work backwards on your row. As in, if you went from left to right for your first row, work from right to left. This will allow the wall to be less manufactured looking. So that's it. Just keep working back, left to right the whole way through. So I covered the bases. Let me share with you a few other tips to make sure your build goes well as it can. Okay, so my hunch is that you are going to have some light switches or some outlets on the wall that you want to put some stone on. And you know what? That is just okay. You simply apply the stones right up to where the drywall is cut. Then you want to use outlet spacers. At least that's what worked for me. I'll put a link to what I used in the comments. But you use those to move the outlet or switch kind of out to be a little bit more flush with the stone. Okay, so another thing is to be prepared to cut lengthways on some stones. This is going to happen when, say, you reach the top of a doorway or even at your ceiling. So for the doorways, I would just hold a stone up to where the incoming row right here is what we're talking about. This incoming row meets the molding. And as you can see, my incoming row is the standard kind of height. But when I get to the molding, I don't want to put the same stones right here because then these would be higher than the incoming row. So you have to make sure that you cut the stones kind of above the molding for your door to be in line with that incoming row so you can continue to keep things level even over the doorways. As you can see here, I made sure it's level so that everything else above stays in line and stays continuously level all the way across. So what I did for that doesn't mean you have to do that, but I would get a stone, hold it up to the incoming row right here, the incoming stone, and just draw a pencil mark on it to make sure I knew where to cut that lengthways with my hacksaw. And then level everything out and do the same thing all the way across. And so this happens at the top of your wall as well when you run into the ceiling. There are two different ways that you can do that. You can again use that same method that I just described. Hold a stone up there to where the kind of the space is, draw a little line on it so you know how much to cut across lengthways. Or you can also use a tape measure and hold it up there to see if you need your piece to be an inch, or maybe it's 1.25 inches, and you cut that much off of your stone from a lengthwise perspective. Now, this is the part where the oscillating tool comes in handy because, as we all know, people's drywalls and their ceilings, they're never perfectly straight, right? So what you're gonna run into is probably your stone kind of sort of fitting in there, so you have to maybe use the oscillating tool to kind of shave off a little part of the stone that might be sticking out that's preventing from actually going into the spot you have. I'm not saying that's the perfect solution, but I did use my oscillating tool to do that, and it seemed to work pretty well. So something else to keep in mind here, we talked before about some of the variations in colors and sizes that you'll want to make sure that you apply as you're going through this. You'll also want to make sure that you don't have a situation where you have a bunch of stones ending at one spot where you have, say, a big line or a break in between stones that goes up and down for feet on edge. That just looks terrible. You'll want to make it look like somebody really put stones on a wall. So just make sure that, you know, a couple stones on top of each other forming a line is okay, maybe even one more. But after that, your eyes start to get attracted to that big line that goes up and down the wall where all the stones stop and then another set of them start, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure you vary things up